Hello and welcome to Human Inc TV. I'm here with Adzhar, who's head of people and organization here at Maxis, a leading telco in Malaysia. Thank you so much for joining the session today and sharing a bit with our colleagues in the HR community, Adzhar. Maybe to start with, could you share a little bit about what is your job actually about? What do you do in a normal week? What's sort of your role here?
I am in a role that elsewhere may probably be described as human resource, or in some other places maybe described as human capital, something, or whatever it is. But basically the most important thing for me, if I were to describe it in a few words, is managing talent and creating engagement. I don't have to deal with some of the more traditional part of HR, like managing the payroll, managing the system, because we sort of insource it to another part of the company, and I'm very happy with that. Because I think it allows me more time to focus on what's really important, which is again the talent and the engagement of the company.
Thanks so much. And you could say that I've noticed that Maxis has a very sort of different profile when it comes to the way you call it something different. You work very digitally, I believe, being a digital company enabling mobility and so on. Have you always been like this, or has there been some sort of shift in how you work with people, staff, talent?
Maxis has a pretty long history. It's been around for about 22 years or so, and for most of the time it has been a very, very successful company, number one in the market in basically all counts. But you know, when you've been successful for too long, sometimes bad habits set in, and I think over the last few years the shareholders have brought in a new management team, and I think we have had a very enjoyable time helping to change the culture and the mindset of the company. And that has basically produced some pretty interesting result and very, very, very positive result business-wise. Yeah.
That's super interesting, because that's something we hear a lot from the clients that we work with and folks in the HR community. A lot of them are talking about change, transformation, but very often they also ask, but how? Right? What were some of the things that you decided to do different when that shift started occurring with new signals from the senior management?
Okay. Our management team believe that ultimately, it's all about mindset. Yeah. You know, you create the right culture, you get the right people, the right talent, get them engaged, get them committed, good things happen. Yeah. That may be a rather simplistic way of putting it, but if you truly believe that and you put your energy and your resources and your investment in creating the right culture, good things will happen. We don't really agonize and focus too much on the numbers. We don't pore over the spreadsheet too much. We don't have lengthy reports on how well the company is, and whenever there are problems, we don't have war room, we don't have emergency meeting. We try to handle it based on the assumption that we have good people, and basically if you let them do their job well, it will get where we want to be.
That's really interesting, because that sounds like a very sort of a culture where values like trust, empowerment, solve the problem at the level where it occurs, don't escalate up. Was it always like that, or how did you create that? Because that's quite different from what we see with many clients and many organizations here in Southeast Asia. Certainly, there's a tendency towards sort of command and control, many layers. I mean, what was that shift like? How did you make that happen? I think our viewers would love to hear that.
The old Maxis was probably as successful as you can expect from a telco, but the days of traditional telco was fast disappearing. Our competition now are not so much the other telcos within the country. It's beginning to become more and more like the digital companies, the Amazon and the Google and the Apples of the world. And we could never stand a chance to compete against these kind of people if we remain the old telco that we used to be. One of the biggest issues is the fact that after a while, innovation sort of dies down. And when you're trying to fix innovation, different people have different formulas. Some of the formulas are the 14 steps of innovation and the 17 ways. What we feel is important about innovation is that naturally people want to become innovative. But there are a lot of barriers that prevent them from becoming innovative. And in Asia, you have more barriers than most other societies, especially with hierarchy. You know, it's like all about seniority, it's all about how big your office is and how long you've been working and what is your title and your position. And that sort of put a lid on innovation, because if you're young, you're smart, you have an opinion, you're not encouraged to offer your opinion. And in today's world, the technology and everything has changed so much. Just being there for 20 or 30 years doesn't mean that you know what needs to be done. It may even mean that you may have no idea what needs to be done. So a lot of the ideas and a lot of the innovation need to come from the young and from below. And our way of increasing innovation is by creating the right culture and by removing what we perceive to be the barriers of innovation. things like the physical structure of the workplace. You know, all of the rooms and the cubicle and the division doesn't help innovation.
Yeah, I noticed you have very open space here.
It is extremely open. There isn't a single office in the entire company, not even for the CEO. And open communication, you know, the fact that you have an open environment does allow for open communication. It's about basically allowing people to try out new things and being able to forgive the occasional lapses and mistakes that happen. And if you do that long enough and you're willing to make some of the investment on your people, like bringing in the right people and maybe even exiting some of the wrong people and continually giving them the message to say that, let's do something interesting. Yeah. Let's set our targets high. Let's not just be the best in Malaysia, but let's be the best that we could possibly be in the whole world. And it'll come, you know, you keep putting the emphasis, putting the energy, you will get there.
What were some of the things you had to stop doing? Because many times it's easier to start something new than to stop something that's part of who you think you are. If you want to become something new, you may need to cut certain things away. I mean, what did you stop doing, or how did you manage that?
I think in the old days, things were just too complex, whether they are external, such as our products and our services and our offering, or whether they were internal, the way that we work, our processes, our policy, our technology. They were just too complex, they were just too old. We have tons and tons of policies and tons of processes. There was too much focus on compliance and just meeting the policies. We basically threw away most of the policies, and whatever that was left was clearly simplified.
Threw it away, wow.
Yep, and that became a core part of our, what we call the Maxis People Promise, which is, I know. And our ambition is that at any point, a Maxis employee can always say, I know. Yeah. So if somebody was to say, do you know the policy on this? I know. Do you know how well are you performing? I know. Yeah. Do you know how your potential is, how you can grow? I know. So we target our energy to make it such that at any point, the answer will always be, I know. So if we feel that this particular process or this particular policy is not helping us to deliver that promise, we will change it. It means, for example, throwing out a 17-year-old HR system and putting in a cloud-based HR system that allow everybody to have full access to the HR system at any point on their mobile unit.
Wow.
And also going, like I said, through the content of our policies and our processes and throwing away a lot of it because they were not serving any purpose. Except maybe for setting boundaries of what you can or cannot do, which is not really relevant for today's world.
And removing some of these controls, which there's really controls when you have all these policies and compliance and all that. That must have been scary for some people that had been used to that we couldn't operate without them. How can we possibly throw that out in the bin? How can we open up the data on a mobile clouded platform and so on? How did you manage to create the courage to let go of that fear and to embrace the uncertainty of trying to do something new? Because I think that's something that a lot of folks in the HR community and the business community are struggling with these days.
Okay, when it comes to the technical part of maintaining security, that's not really the difficult part. There are enough experts out there that you can engage and say, you come and tell me how to make sure it is safe. The human part is the fact that our message to our people is that we have leaders, we have managers, and it's their job to exercise judgment. And most of the time, people who are happily making multi-million ringgit business decision finds it scary to make even a small people decision. And what we are trying to say is that, hey, if you can make a 10 million ringgit business decision, you should be able to make this decision about performance, about policy, about compliance, about everything else. So number one, you obviously need to help them by training them to be sensitive and to understand how to make the decision. You have to help them by taking away all of the barriers, all of those unnecessary processes and unnecessary policies, and also by giving them the tool, modern tool, which are digital in many ways, open communication, and constant reminder to them that as a leader, you have to deliver the Maxis culture, and to everybody else also to say that it's your job to live in the Maxis culture.
What was the hardest part, do you think, for you guys in creating this transition? What was it? Was it the technology? Was it the culture? Was it the processes? What were the hardest part of this shift, or the one that took the longest to get right? Or
probably one of the hardest part was the fact that in the early days, most people still didn't think that we have a problem. You know, when you've been so successful for so long and you've been number one for so long, you may think that what's the problem? Now, some of them may not have recognized the fact that we used to be number one by a long shot, and now we are barely number one compared to the other competitors. In a way, we didn't really have a burning platform. It's not that the company was in a crisis and everything was going bad. Yeah. There was no such thing. It's our own internal desire to say that we want to change the company. We want to create a company that can be admired by everybody else, not just in Malaysia, but throughout the entire industry and throughout the world. So it is our own motivation to say that let's change this. When company is going down and times are bad and everybody recognize that, making changes is relatively easy. Yeah. But when many people still think, why do we need to make these changes? That require a different kind of logic and different kind of persuasion.
So this is really the shift that we see a lot of companies are struggling with, is creating the momentum to lead for change when you're doing well. Yeah. What did you find helped you do that? What were some of the strengths that you have discovered that you used for this shift in the organization, in the leadership team? Was it a certain leadership style? What were some of the things that helped you do it? Because you've been very successful at doing that.
Yeah, I think there is a perception that you have to change the entire company, which is almost impossible. The way that we see things is that there are probably 20 or 30 people who actually run the company. Yeah. And these are typically your senior leadership team members, regardless of how you call them or how you describe them. Get these people to be on board, get these people to believe in the journey, to read from the same song sheet. Yeah. The rest naturally follow. The good thing about the Asian society, which is reflected in our business organization, is the fact that people expect to be led. People want to see leadership. And if you offer them leadership, you usually get it, for better or for worse. So if you have a bad leader, then you will end up creating a bad organization. But if you have a good leader, it's quite easy for him, through example, through passion, to have people following him. We, in many ways, we are a very personality-driven society, as opposed to a rules-driven society. So if you make sure that the people running the organization, the top 20 or 30 people, are credible people, people who are honest, who love working with each other, who believe in the dream, it's not that difficult to get the rest of the company to follow suit.
So I can't just copy the way you've done it in terms of the policies, open office and so on. I would need to also copy in terms of getting the right people with the right leadership style, mindset to make this happen to some extent. And that's harder to copy, right, for your competitors.
Absolutely. Changing the office space is probably the easiest part. Just write a big check and bring in some smart ID guy and he'll change it for you. Yeah. But you can change the physical space without changing anything in the organization. And before you know it,
we've seen a few companies do that.
They start getting back to what they used to be. And we're not interested in doing it just for the sake of being cool. No, we really believe in the idea that we all are working in the same company. Some of us have different jobs. Some of the jobs are paid more than other jobs. Some of the jobs are a bit more critical than other jobs. But otherwise, we are part of the same organization. Every single employee of the company, regardless of whether you're the tea lady or you're the chief HR officer, are on exactly the same benefit scheme.
And in line with that, you can say, I wonder, what are some of the specific things when it comes to HR or people policies or maybe the experience? There's a lot of talk about employee value proposition, that a new employee that had maybe worked in a more traditional company, when they join you, what is it that they experience is different here? Maybe you have heard from folks that joined you?
Yeah. What we're trying to tell them is that you're going to have a great working environment, working with people that you enjoy working with, and you're going to have a chance to do some fantastic stuff. Because we're not just a typical company trying to maintain the status quo. We actually have very high ambition of trying to become a very modern digital company. And we have the resources. We are willing to invest the money, and we are investing a lot of money on revamping some of our core processes and core system and core product. Not that many companies have all of those things. So we think we are unique in many ways by having the desire and the ambition and by having the resource to get there.
And if you were to sort of maybe share from your experience of this journey from where you were to where you are now, maybe there are colleagues sitting out there saying, if we could do that, that would be awesome. And what advice would you give them? I mean, I'm sure that's why they're watching this video, is because they want to hear from you, right? So what do you think are some of the things they could maybe learn from your journey? Or
like the shoe companies say, just do it. Yeah. I think the problem with a lot of HR people is that we tend to be too conservative. Quite often we are the barrier of change rather than the implementer of change. I think we like to talk about some of these things too much, and we can find ghosts and problems in almost every proposal that anybody can come up with. So generally we tend to be too conservative. We tend to be too conventional. We tend to feel that our job is maintaining harmony and all that kind of stuff. But no, our job has changed. Our job is about getting the best talent, getting them to be engaged and committed, and getting them to deliver results. And our skill need to be obviously the old traditional skill of being able to coach and counsel and mentor, but we must also have the new skill of being very, very digital. Our HR organization is almost 100% digital. Every solution, every processor that we have is running on some cloud-based solution, and they're all available on your mobile, and you can basically learn anytime, anywhere. You can work anytime, anywhere.
That must be very expensive. How did you get the buy-in for this? I'm sure there's some of the colleagues watching this thinking, oh, but I could never get my CFO to agree to that. How did you get how did you sell that in?
Well, to start off with, the old ways of doing things was also expensive, and in many ways can be even more expensive. So obviously, resource is an issue. Nobody have a blank check, but if the company as a whole is really committed to doing it, I think you shouldn't have a problem in trying to get approval. And it depends on how you sell it also. I mean, you're not selling it just because you want to have a cool HR department. You're selling it because the solution will directly help to transform the organization towards its ambition. When we do digital, it's not just because we like being digital. Obviously, it's fun and it's cool, but it will help to deliver the ambition of turning Maxis into a digital company, so that it makes us credible for us to offer a digital solution to our customers. So there is a long, consistent logic as to why we do what we do.
How long did it take to create this shift?
I think the journey of the new Maxis probably started around 3.5 years ago, and you saw the progress over time. Obviously, it didn't happen overnight, and the journey is not yet completed.
When did you start seeing the first sort of indications that you were on the right track? Because you might be like, will this work? Or
within the first year.
Within the first year?
Yeah. After 1 year of being at it, our employee engagement score, which was done by a third party, and it is part of a global employee engagement score that they offer, and we've been on it for many, many years, went up from the lowest point it has ever been in 2013 up to a very significant amount that, according to the consultant, was bigger than they have ever seen in any company over a period of 1 year.
What were the attributes? What were the changes that made that happen? Because I'm sure a lot of folks would love to do that.
Culture and values. There are many aspects of the survey, but the one that people seem to be very, very clear that they really understand the vision and the culture and the values of the company. So even though there were some other areas that they are still not sure, they were incredibly strong on this area. Yes, we know what the company stands for. Yes, we know where the direction of the company is. As time goes by, we continue to improve because we know where our strong points are. We also have identified where we were not so strong. For example, some people were saying that there is no growth and development in Maxis because you no longer have title, you no longer have promotion, you no longer have big office for big people and company cars.
They did away with a lot of that hierarchy stuff.
We flattened the organization, so many people had the perception that there is no growth. And we started working on it to say there is plenty of growth in the new Maxis, except that it is not in the traditional way of having a great title or incremental promotion or a bit more money, a bit more thing. Growth in the sense that you can really do more, you can really learn more, and you can really lead people if that's what you want to do.
It's really inspirational to hear this. I really thank you for sharing this, Adzhar. And I wonder if there anything you have done that you felt was not working so well, or something you would have done differently if you were to do it again, because sometimes it's also learning from failure, or at least from experience, can be very valuable. I know you've had a lot of success with what you've been doing here, so maybe it's a hard question, but...
If I were to do it again, I probably would push harder earlier.
Okay.
So everything that we did turned out pretty well. Obviously, we had some setback and some problem along the way, none which are very major. And sometimes we probably say, well, let's take this easy because we're not quite sure how it's going to work. Will people like it? Will it create more problem? I probably would say that if you have a team of people that you trust working with you, then push it.
Push it harder. Push it harder and faster. Yeah. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you taking time out, and thanks for sharing.